Hello everybody, welcome back to Expedition Homestead. I hope everybody's winter is going good so far and that you are all getting geared up for the coming spring as we can start growing outside finally again. I know some of you in different parts of the country are just starting to get their seeds going, so it can be a very exciting time of the year and I hope you guys just have a blast doing that. In today's video, we will be propagating our curly Sue cactus. So this is a Epiphyllum Guatemalense monstrose cactus. And we have had this for, I think, about almost 2 years now, probably about a year and a half. And it has a lot of aerial root growth up here, which is giving us a perfect opportunity to propagate it. I've talked about this cactus a lot in our previous videos, and I have also grown little babies from this cactus in the past, as you can see right here. These I actually grew from the seed pods after this thing fruited. We have a video in which I will put a link down below if you want to know how to do that. If your curly Sue cactus happens to be flowering, you can grow these seeds pretty easily, and I had really good success doing that. So today we'll take a look at this cactus up nice and close. You will see that there are aerial roots all around here. Taking a look at this cactus, you can see that there are aerial roots all along this main stem in which we are going to take the first couple of cuttings. Now you can divide this section up into a couple of different segments. You don't have to propagate the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is just take my first cut here, separate out this entire big piece, and then I will divide it up into 2 other cuttings. So we took this piece and divided it up into 2 different cuttings. We can now set these aside for a couple of days. Before we move on, I want to talk about the aerial roots a little bit. You don't have to take cuttings where you have aerial roots on your curly Sue cactus, but it does help out the process and allows them to root a lot faster than they would have otherwise. But if you want to take segments off of anywhere else on the plant, you can do that if you just want to shape it. If you have some segments that are growing out in areas where you don't want them to, you can take those and propagate those out as well without any problem whatsoever. So what you have to do next is just leave your cuttings sit on your table or your workbench or wherever. It doesn't really matter as long as it's somewhere inside your home. You set them aside for a few days. About 3 days would be just fine. What that's going to do is allow your segments that you cut off to callus over and dry up a little bit. That way they're not introduced to any sort of disease or rot when you propagate them in the soil. Next up, we've got to talk about soil. This is going to be a mixture of 2/3 regular potting soil and 1/3 perlite or the equivalent. The goal of this mixture is so that it retains moisture, but it does drain quickly after a watering. What you have to do is just take your curly Sue cuttings and get them about 2 inches into your soil mixture right here. 2 inches. I'll put them right down. And the reason why we put them 2 inches into the soil is just so that there is enough of this stem segment that is in contact with the soil so it can grow an ample amount of roots from it. From that point, we're going to talk about watering, fertilization, and light. We'll talk about water first. You guys can just water this just like you would with your normal curly Sue cactus right off the get-go. So essentially what that's going to be is you're going to give it your first watering. Make sure you have a drainage hole when you're growing this type of cactus. And what you want to do is make sure that you don't water it until the top third of the soil at least is dry. But you don't want the soil to get dry, so you have to maintain a moisture level without letting it completely dry out. Top third of the soil, so we're gonna go 2 knuckles deep in this, see if it's wet, If I don't feel any moisture at all, then I'm going to water again. Typically, this is about once every 2 weeks, depending on your local environment and climate and how humid your house is during whatever time of the year it is when you do this. Next up is fertilizer. You're going to give this a 10-10-10 ratio fertilizer during the growing season once a week. The amount of fertilizer that you give it kind of depends on what you get. So just read the container that you get. Some of them are going to require different amounts of dilution, usually depending on the size of the container or how much water you're giving it. So a 10-10-10 every week of fertilizer during the growing season. But then starting around November, maybe a little bit earlier, you don't really have to fertilize it at all. And once we get to around February, that's when you want to give it a 2-10-10 fertilizer. Again, that once a week schedule, but that 2-10-10 is going to help induce it to flower a little bit once it's in a more mature stage. Clearly, you're not going to want it to flower during the first year, but these things will grow kind of fast once they are established. So looking towards maybe your second year, you can do that fertilization schedule. Next up, we're going to talk about the lighting requirements for your Curly Sue cactus. During the first few weeks, maybe about a month, as you are establishing these propagations, they don't need to be in bright light whatsoever. So I'm just gonna set them off to the side here where they're not under any of my grow lights. They're not in any direct or indirect sunlight. That's gonna be what they really need to establish during the first couple of weeks, up to about a month. After that point, they don't need a whole lot of light either. You don't want them to get too much light as it's really going to affect them negatively. Being that they're an epiphyllum, what they're used to is kind of like on the forest floor or up on trees under the balcony of leaves. So they are not going to be getting that much light in their natural environment. So what this looks like in our homes is usually a eastward or southeastern facing window. They can get morning light. That's great for them. Some bright indirect light is what you want. But you don't want those strong rays of light in the afternoon and evening to be contacting these things, because essentially that's really going to burn them in the long run, and you're not going to see as much growth out of them either compared to if they're in just some bright indirect light during the morning hours and early afternoon. So as you can see, my Curly Sue family is growing and expanding. I'm very excited for these things. I have loved growing them. They're a lot of fun. They're very resilient, and I hope you guys have the best of luck when propagating and growing them. I will leave all my Epiphyllum videos, all the links to them down below for you guys to reference if you have any other questions. And of course, feel free to leave a comment down below if you would like to know anything else about them. I will do my best to answer any questions you guys have. Thank you all so much for watching. Happy gardening, and we'll see you in the next episode.